Okay, Michael.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Who's introing, me or you?
You.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
Shirts, we aligned.
Shirts aligned. Yeah. Ready?
You didn't get the memo? Oh, you did. You wore your...
Yeah.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hey.
Let's jump in because this will be fun. You're not from here, but you're back in town.
Back in town.
Because of Black Hat Asia.
Yep.
Got that right? It's not my tribe.
For the one who doesn't know, what's Black Hat? Can you
It's
share
when people
with
get together and try to hack the Singapore metro.
No.
They do stuff like that, don't they? Sorry.
Go ahead. That's more the DEF CON side of things.
Let Jeremy say what it is because he's going. You're not.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm going to
so
Hong
he
Kong.
gets to say.
Yeah, look, Black Hat is a annual series of cybersecurity conferences. There's 4 a year. Las Vegas is the big one. Las Vegas is part of what's called Hacker Summer Camp. It's like B-Sides, Black Hat, DEF CON, all in like a 9-day period in Las Vegas in August. It's actually hotter than Singapore, if you can believe that. Yeah. But this is the Asia edition, and excited to be here.
Got it. You guys got a booth there?
We do have a little booth. We're one of the finalists for the Startup Spotlight competition.
Oh.
So we'll see how it goes.
Well, congrats.
Respect.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you were in the ecosystem a long time ago, and then you've decamped to America. So we're going to talk about that. Currently CEO of FireTail, which is an AI API security company.
Yep.
Your background's not necessarily security. That's something you went into later in your tech life. But
I mean, my background is kind of mixed, right?
Yeah.
So my career really started as a failed software developer.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of IT
Raise your
people.
hand if you're in that
exactly.
camp.
Yeah.
You too?
No.
You never were.
Just like to
I'm
raise
in
my
the
hand.
failed. I'm in the failed software developer camp.
But I have a degree in computational linguistics, and I joined a language technology company early on in my career with the belief that I would be a software developer there, right? It's what I had studied for. I did my senior thesis on a lot of the stuff that the company was doing. I got there and they were, kind of put me through my paces, and they're like, yeah, listen, you're not quite up to the standard we need for software development. And to be fair, like this was 1998, early neural networks, and most of the developers had PhDs. So I was definitely out of my depth in terms of, let's say, like theoretical understanding of building a neural network in those times and so on. But the company was growing really fast, and they were like, hey, do you want to do IT stuff and support the growth of the business? So that was how I got started down that path. In those days, there wasn't really a separation between IT and cyber. So we were responsible for both sides of things. We did get hacked at one point at that company, is a story I shared recently on the Modern Cyber podcast. But, I went the IT route for like the first 13 years of my career.
And then now you're kind of solely in the security camp?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, so, my career changed directions while I was living here. I was with a video game company. I was running operations there, and that video game company kind of fell apart in 2010, and got a job with a little startup called AWS at the time. And they were looking for people who had a technical background who could go out and talk to CIOs and CTOs about the cloud.
How big was the office at that point?
I think we were 8 people.
It's like Shane Owensby. Was Atlanta there at that time?
No, this is all before.
So it's like Shane and crew.
Yeah, so Shane, Rick, Tim, Livian, me, Rajas, if that name rings a bell with
Tim Duncan, or what's it?
No, Tim Duncan played for the Spurs.
No, okay, it's the Tim that went to Google.
Tim
Synan. Thank you. Yeah, he's in
Italy. The question
Italy
is, why did you decide to go a small company?
Yeah.
AWS. Why? What was the magic that led you there? People, technology, what?
Yeah, actually, it was mostly about the technology, and to be honest, I also just like really needed a job. Living here is expensive.
Makes sense.
And the video game company crashed, and I was like looking for what to do.
Paycheck.
Yeah, paycheck. And like honestly, I was not getting a ton of opportunities to do IT and operations, but Amazon was looking for people with my profile who could reasonably stand in front of an IT executive and explain what this cloud thing was all about. So understanding, let's say like data center fundamentals, server infrastructure fundamentals, all of that stuff from what I've been doing the past 13 years proved to be super useful. And it was a great experience. I was a little bit intimidated by joining a big company because prior to that point, I had done 3 startups in my career. And 4. And I was like, I don't know about joining this big company. And they very much pitched it as, hey, this is the startup inside Amazon, which was true to an extent. Yeah.
I think our paths crossed. You're right. That was when I was at Yahoo. But here's a funny little story. I interviewed with Shane, and He said he had no idea why he was talking to me.
Yeah.
But who is Shane? Both of you knows, but I don't know who's Shane.
Shane started AWS ASEAN. Is that what you think about? I mean, he was the first, opened up the Singapore office.
Yes.
Came from Seattle.
Okay.
Long-time employee, I believe.
No.
Didn't he?
He was local before he joined AWS. He had been with Red Hat here in the area for a long time. And actually the only person who came over from Seattle to support the early office was a guy called Kingsley.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But Shane's quite famous in AWS land because it's kind of like anchoring down Singapore and then kind of running it as they built out the region.
He's still here in
No, he went back to Seattle to work for AWS and then left, right?
Yes. And funny story, I ran into him in Austin, Texas last year in September.
He still wears trench coats?
I did not see him in a trench coat.
He does though a lot though.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. He's a cool dude. But in AWS lore, even in Seattle, if you say like Shane Owensby, they're gonna know about
He's well known.
the guy.
I'm gonna remember that.
Opened Southeast Asia up.
But look, the crazy thing about AWS at the time was that the AWS Asia was growing just like insane pace and faster than many other parts of AWS in the world. Not faster than the US, but faster than some other regions around the world that were also huge growth markets. But Asia, we executed really well. And I think a lot of credit goes to that early team, and a lot of credit should go to Shane. I mean, he supported and advocated for everything that we needed in the region. And yeah, we had a lot of success on the back of that.
That's pretty crazy.
So why did you leave?
A whole convergence of things. And I will say it's one of the few regrets in my career is not that I left AWS, because I would have left at some point anyway, but I left too soon. I should have stayed a little bit longer, 1 or 2 more years. But there was a whole convergence of things that happened around the same time. I was maybe like a little bit of midlife crisis, honestly. My father had a stroke that actually put in me, and he had a stroke like 2 months after he retired. And he had all these plans for things he wanted to do, and he didn't get to do any of them. And I kind of took a good hard look in the mirror, and I was like, is AWS what I really want to be doing? And don't get me wrong, I was having a ton of success at work. I was learning a lot and so on. But I did have a little bit of a, oh crap, like what if life is shorter than you think? What do I really want to be doing? And I jumped at an opportunity that in hindsight was probably a bad opportunity, but I did learn from it. It didn't go great, but it was a little e-commerce startup here in Singapore. That was my last gig here before I went back to the States. And really it was that kind of convergence of things. And like I said, maybe not the best decision, but live and learn.
Yeah, because you probably could have ridden it for a while, but
for sure,
you still did an interesting thing. You mentioned the linguistic thing, and then give us the language count. So curious.
There's like 5 that I would say I'm pretty fluent in, and a few others I can get around in.
What are they?
Well, English, Finnish. My family background is a mix, half American, half Finnish. And so I grew up with those 2 languages, French, Spanish, Portuguese. But I always tell people Brazilian Portuguese, not Portugal Portuguese. I went to Portugal.
Is a different...
Totally. I went there a couple of years ago and I was like, what are these people saying? And then I get around in German and, can read basic Italian and Dutch.
Okay, next one is Hebrew, okay?
I'll work on it.
Okay.
I'll see what I can do.
Because of cyber stuff or what?
I mean, honestly, it should be.
Yeah, you should, no?
Yeah.
Makes you more
marketable.
Powerful down there.
The premium, getting better.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're going to get into a little bit of talking about ecosystems and things like that a little bit later, because I think that's going to get heavy.
Okay.
We'll try to end on a high point even when we get into that. But before we get into that, just tell us kind of how you moved back, did some stuff.
Yep.
But let's get into how FireTail got started, what you're focused on, kind of how's that going.
Moved back to the US, did some stuff, as you said, probably 2-3 stops. I can't remember if it was the second stop or third stop or what at this point, but I landed with a cloud security company, early days of what has come to be called cloud security posture management. And the TLDR on it is that, like, as companies move to the cloud, whether it's AWS, Azure, GCP,
or Oracle.
Oracle, sorry. The things that you have to look at from a security perspective are different than things that you've looked at in the past. In the past, you would look at, let's say, like your perimeter security, or maybe like your identity, or like your endpoints and whatnot. And all of those are still important, but actually the biggest data breaches happen as a result of misconfigurations. And if you think about like what these cloud platforms are, they're really like software-defined infrastructure. Software-defined means that every part of the configuration is also software-defined. Mm-hmm. So everything around, let's say, like an example I like to use, everybody talks about the Open S3 bucket, but I actually like to use a different example that really illustrates the difference in it. On a platform like AWS.
Because I think we're going to be doing a lot of education. Let's just tell people about that because I know a lot of this. So in AWS land, you have your object storage.
Yeah.
Or we could think of it as like storage.
Yeah. So let's just say like...
And you're leaving it wide open to the internet and people discover it and they get whatever they want out of it.
Yeah. But you could, for instance, like one of the objects you could make public is one backup file. And like to make that one thing public in my own data center is like layers of security and network topology and all this crap, right? And so a lot of companies didn't know how to think about their cloud environments. And so we were a company that was early in that space. We grew really rapidly, 20x over a 4-year period. We got acquired in 2020 by a company called Rapid7. And I spent about 1.5 years there mostly doing M&A work. And then I left to start FireTail.
Got it. Yeah.
Just to disclaim, one of the biggest breaches in the US was Capital One.
Yes.
That they opened their, what they call their buckets, or their internal information for the externals, which make it resonate why you need to be more posture about.
You know what's funny? There's a bunch of AWS people moved
Yeah.
to work for Capital One after that.
For
That
sure.
was one of the ways they decided to solve it, was bringing the AWS
expertise.
people into Capital One.
Look, it's not a bad
That's
strategy.
one of my friends. One of them that used to be out here.
Yeah. Not a bad strategy. Yeah.
Do you think, like, on this one, and this might be open to can of worms, but is there a difference when you're kind of working on this company? It's founded in America. You're selling globally.
Yeah.
But what's the percentage of U.S. customers over everybody else? Is the highest, or?
Yeah, U.S. customers would be the highest. Weirdly, our first 2 customers were both outside the U.S., but that was just like coincidence. I wouldn't consider that to be any indicative of any patterns or anything like that. Our first 2 customers were Singapore and Australia, weirdly enough. But
well, you had history, right?
Yeah.
Just connections.
Definitely some network effect on that. Yeah. But definitely like our highest user base is in the U.S. It has been global, weirdly, since day one, both in terms of like the user base and in terms of the team. We started with a goal of U.S. as kind of commercial presence. Most of our R&D, actually, like 90% of our R&D is done in Europe. We have 1 guy in Brazil.
Wow.
But yeah, otherwise.
And is there a difference now that you have this experience here and there and you've been acquired? Like, what's the big difference in kind of selling security around the world? Like, who gets it? Because I feel like some areas it's a struggle. Other areas they just go, oh, I need this stuff. I get it. Like, what's your vantage point on that?
Weirdly, it is very much depends on how big the breaches have been in your part of the world. And one of the examples I would cite is that like a couple of years ago, one of the number 2 telco in Australia had a big breach as a result of an API that just like shot API security awareness up in Australia like crazy.
Referring Optus.
Yeah.
Child of Singtel.
The child of Singtel, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that is a huge driver for awareness and whatnot. But I think you always have to, build awareness with any like new approach and new technology. And we saw the same thing in cloud security. The first conversation was never like, you have a problem, we're here to fix it. The first conversation was always like, let me tell you why cloud security is different and how, and then we can talk about whether it's a good fit for you.
So you put fear, or you put, what's your
awareness and education.
Yeah.
I don't like fear-based marketing, but I will say the cybersecurity industry is dominated by it.
Correct.
Yeah. FUD is like probably the number 1 strategy for cybersecurity marketers. Yeah.
So why you don't use it?
I won't say that we don't use it at all, but I will say that it's not our number 1 driver. I think we look at it from the standpoint of like trying to empathize a little bit with your customer. If you're like a CISO, as I know you've been in the past, you've got 1,000 companies screaming in your ear that like what we do is the absolute most important thing. And if you don't sign up with us, you're going to get breached. And by the way, you're stupid, right? If you're not listening to us about it. I just think everybody says that. And that's really obnoxious and pretty annoying. I just don't think that's a useful use of your time. And it's probably also not likely to get you to tune into our message. So our perspective is really much more fact-based. If you look at like the content that we've produced over the last 3 years, we do an annual State of API Security report. We track all of the publicly disclosed breaches. We do a breakdown and analysis of each of those things. And if you want to understand more, you can download it for free and by the way, if you're curious about how the platform works, just sign up and try it for free. No credit card required. Like, I think we've taken a little bit more of a fact-based approach to how we've tried to connect with people around this. Mm-hmm. Put together a bunch of content that explains problems in ways that I hope are relatable and reasonable. But yeah, I don't know. I know that our customers are getting bombarded all the time with messages that I think are like not super helpful.
What's your view on this?
From my point of view, it's I'm from the side of the customer. I've been bombarded with endless, not just shouting at me, endless messages, LinkedIn, emails, everything. You're getting kind of a black screen.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear anyone unless I know you, unless you're my friend, or unless you bring in value.
Yeah.
I want to hear more values. I know the attacks. I'm hearing the news. I know what is risky.
Yeah.
But what's going to be the value for me also as in my position, how it's going to be beneficial for my KPIs.
Yeah.
How you can help me basically to help you.
Yeah.
And this is the discussions I was able to say, okay, let's hear more. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And how quick did you guys come to the idea of, hey, FireTail will look like this. Let's get this built. Let's get moving. Let's raise money. Because this has been more one of your textbook kind of pretty high velocity playbooks.
Yes and no. I mean, first of all, our first concept, the first thing that we ever built, while we still maintain it, has turned out to be the last thing that customers adopt. And not to get too deep in the weeds on it, but look, like I said, we started from the standpoint of trying to understand like how do APIs actually get breached. And the background on that came out of the cloud security world that my co-founder and I both came from, where we were looking at like how are companies transforming their architecture on the cloud, and you're like, oh, okay, everybody's moving towards microservices, APIs are important, every piece of data is flowing over an API, great. So we looked at how APIs get breached, and we're like, oh, it's actually problems with like authentication, authorization, input sanitization, things like that, all of which are within the developer's control. So they're really like down to the design of the API. So the very first thing that we built was a set of open source code libraries that sit in line, analyze API calls as they come in, check all of these security checks along the way. Is this properly authenticated? Are you authorized to this data? Are you allowed to issue this type of request? Turns out developers did not care, like couldn't care less, in fact.
Why? Why do you think so?
Because security is not their job. And a little bit to something you said earlier, they have no KPIs around security, right?
So the developer's saying, this isn't my problem. I'm just writing code, or I'm building the API, or I'm consuming the API. This is the CISO's problem.
It's like you're responsible for it, but you're not accountable for it, right? And so the thing that we've observed over time is like, first of all, we had to like go back to the lab and really kind of figure out a different way to approach the whole problem. And what we ended up discovering is that the real problem is like, I don't even know the APIs I have. So if I'm the CISO, it's like, I don't know the APIs I have. I don't know if they're good or bad. I don't know what's happening with them. General visibility and awareness is like a much bigger problem than, am I actually in line real time blocking a malicious API request?
But then they're not going to ask you, okay, you give me the awareness. What should I do with that?
Yeah, they are. And so I'm going to give you an OWASP API top 10 report, and I'm going to give you different like MITRE attack mappings and things like that. And I'm going to give you risk scoring of your APIs. And I'm also going to weight that with things like the severity of different vulnerabilities, the amount of traffic that each API has, things like that. So I'm going to deliver all of that to you anyway, because you're going to, as you said, you're going to ask me for that.
Yeah.
Maybe after all that's said and done, you're going to see the one really bad API, and then you're going to go to that developer and tell them to put this inline component in there and block bad API requests. But it was like not at all our initial vision. It took us a while to figure this out. So it hasn't been this textbook like saw a problem, saw a solution, worked from day one.
This is the interesting part, because I want to go back, rewind back and say, when you formate a startup and you're thinking about your co-founder and then how you're going to kind of validate the market. Yeah. Can you share with us more insights? What happened in the vaccine when you just, started to think, this is the place we want to go?
Yeah. So I think one of the most important qualities any founder, co-founder of a startup can have is a little bit of humility and flexibility. It's like you come to a problem because you have some level of expertise and understanding and you think you can solve the problem, right? So you also have maybe a little bit of ego in thinking that you can solve the problem. But like I just described, your initial idea may very well not be the right idea for solving the problem. And you have to be able to recognize, okay, yes, maybe I've identified a problem. Maybe the problem's a little different than I thought, or maybe it's like actually completely different than I thought, or whatever, and be flexible and roll with that. So how did we get there? We did a bunch of things. We did a bunch of it. We started in kind of 2022, early 2022, still kind of like early post-COVID days. And you're trying to, and in that year, 2022, we're trying to evangelize and talk to developers about the problem and so on. So we're looking for like virtual meetups. We pitched in the open source tools competition area at Black Hat Las Vegas that year, showed off our open source code libraries. We went to a bunch of like developer centric and DevOps and DevSecOps events and kind of like showed off. And we saw that like the adoption wasn't really happening the way we wanted it to happen. And at the same time, we're like doing the things that we're trying to do on the other side of the table, which is to say, reaching out to security communities and security users. And that's through a mix of like network and content and, you know, direct outreach to a bunch of people, and then just having conversations with them. And it was through some of those conversations that we realized, oh, actually the problem is like, I don't know my APIs, right? But like, honestly, that took us a year.
And parallel to that, did you code? Did you develop?
We continued to code. We continued to develop a few things that we knew were going to be core building blocks, whichever way, right? Like at the end of the day, you are going to need to be able to like maintain an API inventory. Okay, so like
better build that.
Better build that, right? You're going to need to have some level of API log analysis capability. Better build that as well. One of the decisions that we took early on, and we had no idea that it would prove to be so valuable, was on the API log analysis capability. Like one of the problems with APIs is they come in like 50 different shapes and sizes, and you can use like so many different combinations of technologies. We built like a log normalization capability that we had no idea would prove to be so valuable. So that one was just a little bit of luck, like a little bit of, I mean, maybe it was kind of an informed guess because we were already seeing 2-3 log formats, but over time it's had to expand to like 15-20. And yeah, that one, I think, we got a little bit lucky that we made a bet on that. So we continued to develop things that we knew we were going to need no matter what ended up happening. But let's say like in terms of product packaging, in terms of pushing the strategy in the direction of the company, we ended up effectively changing directions like 1.25 years in. Yeah.
So if the next co-founder listens to us and he wants to study from you and you say, this is the 2 things I will do differently, what do you would advise he or she?
Yeah. One thing I would definitely do differently, when we started FireTail, we had a group of design partners that we had like more or less committed. And I think we did 2 things wrong on that side. Number
design
one,
design partners as in what, like
as in like
kind of
no design partners as in like, hey, we're going to try to solve this API security problem. Mm-hmm. Is that a problem for you guys? Yes, it's a problem for us. Awesome. Will you work with us in trying to like figure out how we're going to solve this? And I think 2 things that we did wrong on that side was, one, we didn't recruit enough. So I would tell anybody, like, however many design partners you think you need, take that number and multiply by 3. Because the reality is that like, I'm going to come back to you in 3-4 months and be like, hey, Roz, we're ready to tackle that problem. You ready to work with us? Some stuff came up. It's, lower priority. We lost somebody or whatever the case may be. And so like a certain percentage of your design partners are going to flake no matter what.
Stable of them.
Get a bigger stable. Yeah. And second is get them to put skin in the game earlier on. And that doesn't have to be cash, which is of course, the best thing that you can get out of them. But like, make them sign a commitment, of some kind. It's like, hey, we're going to work with you. We're going to commit, 2 hours a month of somebody working with you, even if that's just reviewing demos and designs and like continuing to provide feedback. Because same problem, right? Some percentage of them are going to flake or not be available or whatever. So I think like getting those 2 things.
It's almost like a funnel. You need a bigger one of them because you're only going to convert X number of them into being useful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to think about it. It is a funnel.
Also, what's in it for them? To
yeah, but they're getting Well, what's in it for them should be pretty clear, right?
Free amazing software. Oh, sorry.
Bingo. Yeah. Free amazing software and a solution to a problem, right? Like you have a security problem. And by the way, like every company in the world has a security problem.
Yeah.
You may not have this one in particular, but if you've heard our messages and you've had conversations with us and you've committed to working with us, you probably think you do have this problem, right? Yeah. So yeah, those are the two things I'd probably say to anybody who's thinking about founding something.
So you guys are 100% remote. You got offices.
We're 100% remote.
Okay, 100%, which is by design, right?
Which is by design.
I looked on your website and you kind of have your key principles, somewhat inherited from leadership principle influences, I would guess.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly modeled after, but
no, definitely some.
That idea.
Yeah,
right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
How do you kind of apply these cultural nuances or goals that you have in building a startup with also 100% remote, with tough. Also you have an engineering center offshore? How do you do it?
It's tough.
Yeah.
We do get the team together once a year. We originally thought it would be more often than that. We originally planned for it to be once a quarter, and that proved to be pretty impractical. But once a year, reinforcement. And then otherwise, it's good leadership and good management in terms of if you see somebody not doing the things that you need them to do, praise in public, coach in private. Yeah. I think that's always a good thing. I will say that is one of the most challenging things about being remote, because even if we jump on a Zoom to have that conversation, you can't see my body language. I can't see yours as well. Getting the kind of emotional connection with the people on the team to really kind of buy in and also just from, let's say from the leader's perspective, convey the message that you want to convey can be very challenging. Weirdly, the travel schedule has picked up like crazy over the last couple of years post-COVID. I think there was a lot of people craving connection and really wanting to get back out in front of people. But finding the time to make that a team-based travel hasn't really worked out as much. Conferences are probably like the biggest thing that everybody does still travel for or now travels for. But yeah, this is maybe actually the toughest part of running a startup that is remote first.
And would any of it, I mean, even if we separated out the, hey, I'm an American startup and I'm going to do my engineering over here.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the remoteness. We're going to go, would you have ever changed your mind to say we'll go face to face, or you're willing to live with the challenges for the benefits you appear to think you're getting from remote? Like, where's the balance there?
Well, first of all, for us, it was never really an option to really go like 100% face to face. Partially because my co-founder lives in Dublin, and for him, leaving Dublin was like off the table, right? So like we were from day one, we knew.
And you built an office around Dublin?
We actually originally thought that we would end up doing that. Yeah. So what ended up happening was we built R&D practice in Ireland, but it's remote in Ireland. So it does make it easier for the R&D team to meet up a little bit more frequently than the whole company. Yeah,
makes sense now.
Yeah, but I don't think like going face to face was ever really an option for us. Yeah.
So you stay with this, and then and any tricks to like how you do this? Is it more meetings from a Zoom perspective? Is it just you really got to hire the right leaders, and leaders really need to hire and fire appropriately? Like
hiring and firing is probably the thing that I think every startup sucks at, and
is it the lack of being willing to fire, or just hiring poorly? Like.
I think it's more the hiring poorly. Yeah. And like the thing is that, you can look at somebody's qualifications in many, many different ways, and you can maybe look at their background as a way of trying to judge it. But like a startup is uncertain by nature, right? Comes with all kinds of risks and uncertainties. And, imagine that you joined us in 2022 and you were like, hey, I'm all about talking to software developers. And then early 2023, we're like, hey guys, that's not working.
We've changed gears.
Yeah, then what, right? And so like, actually the number one characteristic I think has got to be flexibility and like the intellectual and emotional curiosity that goes along with that. Like you have to be not only willing to make the change, but excited about like learning and then going and doing what it is that needs to change. So that is very, very hard to judge from somebody's CV or from an interview process. And, we could sit down and have 10 conversations over the course of 2 weeks, but that's very different from going through a process of like working with an early set of customers and then they tell you that everything you're doing is wrong. Not that that's what happened to us, but like, yeah.
So based on that, like what's your philosophy now? Because kind of you have the awareness.
Yep.
But how you convert it into actions?
Internally or with customers?
Internally.
Yeah.
Hiring, team.
Yeah. I think we've gotten a little bit tighter on our own interview process, and we've also raised the bar on what it takes to hire somebody, which is a trade-off because that also means your hiring is slower. And sometimes if you need to bring somebody in quickly, like that means that everybody else has to pick up an extra 5%, 10% in the short term.
It's going to take you time to find somebody.
Yeah.
There's no perfect answer, right?
No. There are different strategies from my point of view. One is getting the leader, it can be a team leader or the rest, and then he brings the people so they are kind of loyal to him, or he bring his crew, from previous place. Another set of, strategies, bringing kind of tech lead, that navigate the technology.
Yeah.
So we just need another management component that, gonna match each other afterwards, and the one is gonna be the manager of the factory, and the second one is gonna be managing the technology and the rest. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I'm not sure that I have a take on that. I understand both strategies. I only know kind of how we played it out. I'm sure we could have done a few things better at various steps along the way. It's maybe also not the thing that I focus like most of my time on trying to solve for at this point. Like I think we've gotten to a point, and it's been, it's taken us a little while to get there, but we've gotten to the point where everybody who's on board is pretty committed to what we're doing and is all working together and moving in the right direction. Wasn't always that way. Like took some time to get there, and we had a few people who joined the team that didn't end up being a fit, either from their perspective or ours, and you end up having to go through that. And as Michael said, there's no like perfect way to do it. I think lots of people, if you could find a silver bullet for how to place the right people in a startup and structure teams correctly, I mean, that's like $1 billion company on its own. Yeah,
and I do think and I'm sure I don't know what you modeled your process over. I would say besides leadership principles, which I think is a good thing to channel from AWS, I think the way they organize field teams is pretty good. It keeps evolving. I think better than some. I think the hiring process was also pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you model it after that a little bit since you've been there? Is it a loop? Is it something like that? Or?
We do actually a little bit. We do role play scenarios for anybody customer facing. So some of those, exactly some of those same practices from the AWS days we've brought into the interview process over there. On the kind of, let's say, like the internal team structure, I mean, look, we're still a small company, right? We're like 11, 12 people. Yeah. So we might still be a 2-pizza company, right? Depending on how big the pizzas are. Pizza. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know that we've gotten to a scale or a point where we've had to think about kind of, let's say, the structuring of various teams internally. We definitely model on open communication internally and as much transparency as possible, recognizing that 100% is not always possible. Yeah. But, commercial shares with product shares with commercial. What's going on every step of the way? If one side or the other is blocked or has problems, like everybody knows about it. So,
Got it. So I want to open up kind of a large, multifaceted question.
All right.
And we can do it pieces and parts, but let me just set the stage. You've had experience building startups from scratch in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Trying to get them funded, trying to sell them. I would say you've ran the gamut here.
Yeah.
Correct? For the most part.
I didn't take a company to exit here.
You didn't, but it wasn't for lack of trying. We could say that, right?
Yeah, fair,
Then you're in the US and you've done the same things. That you've also worked for some, you were acquired, you've raised money.
Yeah.
It's played
by the way, I sat on the buy side of 3 acquisitions as well.
So you've seen it in both places.
Yes.
I think what would be cool is to kind of unpack what's different.
Yeah.
Can be good or bad.
Yeah.
What maybe one side could learn from the other that you've had this experience here that's actually was good.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
And then even kind of what do you think happens in the future from the perspective of, there was a reason you're in the US. Some of it could be family related, but I know from us talking before, it's also like, I think I can raise more there. I think there's a bigger...
I know I can raise more there. Exactly. I know there's a bigger market.
So I think, and it's in the vein of like learning from you.
Yeah.
And then maybe people can learn from here there's someone else I was thinking about talking to where someone was like, hey, if you're doing anything in B2B and the US is not in your market plan, something's wrong. Right? Yeah,
I mean, unless you're... The one counter argument I would give to that is, and I've seen a few companies be successful with this. Look, the US is hyper competitive, right? And it's also insanely well funded. So if you're in a large segment, like the solution that you're selling is in a large segment, and you're the underfunded company in that space, there may be a blue ocean strategy around saying, forget it. Like, I don't have the resources to go compete in the US market. I'm going to pursue like a rest of world or a regional strategy. I think that can be valid. And I've seen some companies have good success with approaches like that, where they've said, hey, we're going to be the X company for Europe.
We're going to get killed over here.
Yeah. And so we're like not even going to compete on that fight. Yeah. We're going to be the X company for Southeast Asia or whatever. And you can actually look at like a company like Xero, the accounting software. And like they didn't even try to compete in the US for a long time until they built up to a pretty sizable thing.
They're big everywhere else almost. Yeah.
But, for instance, I can imagine that at some point they were like, we're going to get killed if we try to go up against QuickBooks in the US. And there's also in Europe, there was a company called Exact, small to medium business accounting software. Same thing. They pursued a regional strategy in Europe for a long, long time, eventually got acquired by a PE company. I don't know what they're doing now. But like, otherwise, I 100% agree with you. And by the way, like most of my experience is B2B.
Yep.
I did one consumer company in my career. I found it to be insanely puzzling. I do not understand consumers, and marketing to consumers, I think, is like
But when you were here in this part of the world...
Consumers was the thing I was doing first.
Yeah. But we could say it was the thing.
Yeah.
It didn't really pay off.
No.
And most B2B people were like, possibly laughed out of the room. It was hard to raise money.
I was like,
because they're like, ooh, B2B. Like, but that's just some of the stuff. I'd love to just,
but well, to
there's
your
no
point,
one question here.
No,
it's more of like, you've seen both ends.
Yeah. Look, I can only speak to the experiences that I had and the observations that I had. And I mean, to your point, I think doing B2B here is pretty tough.
Better now than before, though? I mean, I know you're not here now.
Yeah. I mean, ask Jeremy and Morley at Tin Man and see what they say, right? Like they've placed big bets on B2B being and becoming.
Well, they're one of many, I think. Forge, we had Tiong on. These mostly. I think there's this quiet, slow shift because I think for some people it almost goes back on what they used to say.
Yeah.
If they say, ooh, B2B, it's like, what? You didn't say that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not everybody's gonna rally around it. It takes, and that's why I think one of Jeremy's point was create a new capital stack.
Yeah.
That's focused on this.
But this point about the capital stack is actually one that I think it took me a long time to understand, and it took me some time in M&A to actually understand capital flows. So you have to zoom out and really look from the macro view to try to understand this. And like I said, it took me a while to get this. So number one is that the US has a bunch of capital looking for a good return, right? Like way more capital looking for a good return in the B2B software world than anywhere else in the world that I've seen. The second thing you have to understand about it is that there are a gazillion funding options available to companies in the US who are looking to do something. So if you look at a lot of tech M&A that happens in the States, actually most of it is not off of the balance sheet, meaning that most of it is not companies spending cash that they have in the bank to make acquisitions. They have all kinds of financing vehicles available to them. They can do private equity placements in public companies, something called the PIPE. They can take out bonds. They can do debt equity, and debt equity is available into the billions of dollars in the U.S., right? Back to my first point about there being so much capital available.
With lower interest rates, you could have just borrowed.
Yeah.
Straight up borrowing.
Straight up borrowed, right?
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of things available, which is, by the way, what I tell people, like if you're a successful B2B tech company, the chances are you are going to be acquired by an American software company, right? That is like your number one most likely outcome.
Yeah.
And even, by the way, like arguably one of the most successful B2B software companies here in Singapore is going through that process now, right? And so like the Dropsuite team.
Oh yeah, but they did get
okay.
they did get it is done, isn't it? I'm trying to get them on the show.
I think they're still in process.
Sharif,
I don't know
right?
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like because that financing
And that's
is
a US
available.
company that's buying them, right?
Yeah, Ninja One. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that is something that you have to understand from the macro level, right? And so if you're kind of a B2B software company, what is most valid for you in terms of, let's say, like growing the enterprise valuation, which is kind of like ultimately your goal with the company, your goal with the product is to like get customers, retain customers, solve real problems, right? Deliver value to your customers. But your goal with the company is to increase enterprise value. And so understanding that macro kind of capital construct, I think is really important. And by the way, you see it with companies everywhere around the world. Like look at the cyber companies coming out of Israel. One of the very first things that happens is like solution gets designed, solution gets built by people.
Jumping to the US.
Bingo. And whether it's like New York or California or Boston.
And even,
Boston, wherever.
Raising funds
Yeah.
pre-product market fit
Yeah.
is par for the course, correct me if I'm wrong, even in the US a little bit.
Oh, like especially
around
in the US.
here?
If I look at the level of traction that we had when we raised our seed round
In the US.
in the US.
Yeah. With FireTail, you mean?
With FireTail.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that would have been like impossible here.
And it was pre-product market fit.
It was pre-product.
Pre-product. It was what?
Pre-product.
Slides, people, design partners.
Prototype code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you weren't like, hey,
But
come
this
back.
is
You
usual.
weren't.
This is usual in cyber.
Okay,
it's
okay,
not
okay.
unusual.
Yeah.
Here maybe it's
And I think
unusual.
cyber's special, so don't get me wrong. And I
Yeah.
think we have to like put the label on
Correct.
this.
Cyber.
But
yeah.
it's not wholly unlike what will happen in other sectors in America for the right people, the right team dynamics.
Yeah.
It's not only
No.
in cyber, right?
I think in the
I-
US you could raise in other categories as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying that we
Yeah,
can't limit
right.
to that. I'm saying
Right,
there's
right.
definitely this archetype
Agree.
there, especially in the Israel-America corridor. Don't get me wrong, right? And it's special.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, let's say even outside of cyber,
Yeah.
you're going to struggle with that around here,
Yeah.
despite the category. And in fact, I will bet a lot of people in this region don't even know who Dropsuite is.
Yeah.
And don't even know that they're probably one of the biggest B2B. They were actually quite successful, profitable,
Yeah.
doing well, seasoned gray hair executives running the place for some time. They don't really seek the limelight because they're kind of, you probably don't even know who they are.
Yeah, I have two ideas why it's happened, and correct me if I'm wrong. One, the rate of success. There is lots of success that, versus what happened over here, like the US versus here. Okay, so when you have success, you take in more risk.
Yeah.
If you have less success, you're more risk averse. I think this is number one. Number two, the return of second timers, third timers, people that know in the ecosystem what need to be done in each stage. So there are specialists for early stage, there are specialists for growth, there are specialists for, you can choose.
Yeah.
Over here, you don't have this menu, and you open and say, okay, where is these people that I need to?
Yeah.
So this is two things that I think that created the kind of the question, why should we put the money for a company which is pre-product?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely on the talent side, I mean, there are people whose whole career reputations are built on being, I'm the 0 to 1 marketing, I'm the 1 to 10 sales leader, I'm the 10 to 100.
Yeah, she and we had she and Cohen from Hustle Fund, and this is one of the things she said people don't understand. She says you can be at a coffee shop in San Francisco and probably find people that are 3 different marketing specialties having coffee at the moment.
Yeah.
Here you just say, do you have experience in marketing?
Yeah.
If you ask for the specialization,
yeah.
you're gonna narrow the herd really quick, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's definitely a factor, and the returning thing's a huge factor.
The returning thing is a huge factor, but like the returning thing, if you look at, there's a couple aspects of it that, again, I think it took me a little while to understand. Is like, number one is there's a gazillion VC firms, and those VC firms have so much money. Like collectively, not individually. I mean, individually they have a lot of money, and some of them have insane amounts of money, in my opinion. But collectively, if you take all the venture capital dollars available, insane. Even if you do it on a per capita basis, it's going to be just way higher. So the landscape for a limited number of, let's say, fundable startups, there's a little bit of a supply and demand competition dynamic that's there, right? And so to your point about it, it's not only cyber that creates these kind of fundable companies that are pre-product market fit or pre-product even. Yeah, there's a lot of categories that you can get that done in the US, right? So there's like all these dynamics that are like designed in a way to make the US really work with this whole model. And these VCs, like, they're under pressure from their LPs to deploy the capital at whatever rate, depends very much, I think, probably on the company. And the VCs will have different risk appetites and so on, right? But yeah, it's honestly almost every aspect of the ecosystem has more, right? Like more people on the talent side, more money on the funding side, more customers on the adoption side, more exit partners on the end of of the story side. Like all of that just has more, and in one market. Yeah. And like the US really is one market. There are, of course, pockets that work a little bit differently in particular areas, like, obviously California in tech and New York in finance and blah, blah, blah. But you can be anywhere in the country selling to anywhere in the country, and that's pretty real.
And it's been added for decades and decades and decades.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't Intel like the first kind of famous VC deal, and that was what, in the 70s?
Yeah, and I think here you would argue maybe decade and a half.
Trying to put like a positive note. Yeah. Positive note for the Singaporean. She's now sitting at home listening to us, and she said, I wanna be successful founder.
Yeah.
I wanna be the one that we are talking about, but I wanna be here in Singapore.
Yeah.
What do you tell her?
And she's in B2B that way.
She's in B2B.
Yeah. Force.
Well, first thing, like, I would always go back to go recruit a group of design partners first, right? Yeah. Start with your hypothesis about what problem you think they have and go validate that hypothesis, like, early customer discovery.
Here in Singapore?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to start here, yeah, look, getting the availability of the customer and getting the willingness of them to spend time with you is so valuable at that early stage. And again, like, money is great, but even if it's not money, the feedback and the validation of like, I'm solving this problem for you. If you're not going to do it here, do it with somebody who's in a time zone that you can actually work with. I think doing it from Singapore to try to like get customers in the US or Europe or something is a big ask. Maybe, Japan, Australia, whatever, you can cast the net a little bit wider if you find good design partners that are willing to spend the time with you. But those are markets that are kind of also known for being a little bit insular and favoring local solutions and so on. And you might not get the willingness.
And then next, you're getting these design partners.
Yeah.
But in your mind that the US is the market.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Get some traction, get some stuff going, get a little bit of velocity, and then probably try to raise from the US.
Would you move?
I think that's probably a case-by-case decision. Yeah. I do think there's like we talked about, there's a whole market of people who are specialists at every stage. There is also a market of people who are specialists at helping companies enter the US, right? And so like, you don't have to move if you can find the right people. Goes back a little bit to the whole hiring question. One of the first things I did when I got back was I helped a Singaporean company enter the US. Yeah. And yeah.
Now, one thing, if we even rewind a little bit before it, is, hey, I'm Singaporean, because I'm here, some people. I think this is my journey. Right now I'm getting out of school, or I'm going to do a job. Is this even the best answer? Because another answer I'm telling people is go work at a large tech company and maybe even try to get transferred to the U.S. Because, by the way, you have an easier entry into America than many other nationalities with a Singapore passport.
Yeah.
And go do time at one of these places. And that learning might be the magic unlock to coming up with a better idea, staying in America. Because that's another thing I tell people, like, is it really to build a startup? Because maybe it's not. I mean, because you have this vantage point, and you and me,
I think
because of the time we put in
for sure.
at large, hard places, honing our craft, right?
Correct.
The only thing I would maybe push back on a little bit is that I do think working at a large startup or working at a large tech company is different than starting something. Like 0 to 1 is it's very hard. It's very hard. And it's
but maybe the first thing out the gate, trying to do 0 to 1 is too hard. I don't know. Like,
and I think you're gonna it's very rare to find somebody who hits it with their first startup.
Yeah.
Right. You learn your lessons from the failures along the way. Yeah. And so like you shouldn't be scared to take the risk and try something even if it's not going to work, right? And that comes with all kinds of personal and emotional ups and downs. And it is like people always say, "Oh, it's a roller coaster," but like, yeah, that's 100% true. Yeah. And if you're not ready for that, that's really tough.
Yeah, there's no one answer.
No.
Yeah. All right, this is fun. We're gonna get out of time, so we're gonna wrap. But enjoy Black Hat.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the time, because if everybody doesn't know, Jeremy's not based here anymore, so we had to catch you on your return trip. Yeah. And good luck with the startup. But we have some closing questions that we want to ask you.
Go for it.
You get to rewind and get a chance to talk to your 20-year-old self.
Yeah.
With all the, things you know today. What would you be telling that?
I would tell them to learn a little bit more at that phase of skills that can be useful in life. And it's funny, I tell people, it's like, I have I have a bachelor's in computational linguistics. I have an MBA. I speak a bunch of languages, and I did improv comedy for a number of years. Out of all of those things, by far the most useful is the improv comedy. And it's not even close. The other skills are good and all, but they're practical.
Teach you?
Flexibility, go with the flow, learn to read the room, all these kinds of things.
So be brave.
Yeah, that too.
It's not easy to do.
No, it's not. I mean, getting up on a stage when you have no idea what you're going to say is challenging. But I would say take more risks earlier in life, earlier in your career. And that's something that I would tell my 20-year-old self. Try a bunch of different things early. Some of them, they'll really appeal to you. You'll learn some skills and you have no idea how they might pay off later down the line.
Yeah, but it's like a catalog of experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, good one.
Be a co-founder for a startup. It's tough.
Yeah.
What do you do for your mental and physical health, to keep it on the relevant, shape?
Yeah. I'm very disciplined about making sure that I eat, eat regularly. People overlook that, I think, but it's actually pretty important. I have some dietary restrictions, so I have to be very careful about all of that. I block time in my calendar every day to get a workout. It doesn't happen every day, but blocking that time every day makes it happen at least a few days a week. I don't actually care, and I'm not one of these people who's like, no, you have to go really hard and get all the endorphins out or whatever. I don't know. I think that's probably more of an individual thing. But I do think some level of exercise on a regular basis to release stress hormones is 100% necessary. So that is something that I do. Probably the hardest thing is actually switching off in the evening and also then not switching back on, because it's very easy to have something spinning in your head that you're working on, a problem you're thinking about, and then the temptation to just go back, get on the computer and whatnot, right? And sometimes it happens, but it should be a conscious decision where it's oh, I need to put in a couple of hours tonight to work on this or work on that.
But as a remote worker, you work from home?
I do.
So that makes it that much tougher to
No, that makes
manage.
it that much easier. Oh, that much tougher to manage.
Tougher to I'm supposed to shut down.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, the office is right there.
Yeah. And
laptop's on the kitchen table.
Yeah, I try not to bring the laptop up, but it does happen. Yeah. So I don't have a perfect answer, but I definitely think the whole blocking time in the calendar with the intention, and then may not happen every day, but if it happens 3 days out of 5, that's pretty good already.
It's a win.
It's a win. Yeah.
What about stuff you can help people with? Stuff you read, watch, listen to that helps you with whatever you think is whether it be business or personal, that you might want to pass on?
Business-wise, I'm still an RSS user. I wish that Google hadn't killed Google Reader. Like I still
just for reading stuff.
Yeah, just for staying up to date on what's going on. I'm actually a huge proponent of like you should know what's going on in your space. You should know, even if it's like not a direct competitor or whatnot, you'd need to be monitoring what's happening. What are the trends in your space? So I'm big on RSS feeds. I'm also big on an app called Pocket, saving articles to read later and bookmarking them and downloading for offline reading and things like that. I have a workflow that I like, which is that like maybe once every few weeks, I save a backlog of a bunch of things.
In Pocket.
Yeah. Take only my iPad, bike to a coffee shop that I like, and then just like read through a bunch of things.
Like that's the only focus is
to catch up on reading.
Clear the queue.
Yep, catch up on reading.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I get a lot of my news through podcasts. Try to not pay attention to political news as much as possible, which is tough. I live in the DC area, so it's not easy to.
You're surrounded by.
Yeah. I mean, like I don't know, probably like 75% of my neighbors are in or connected to the federal space in one way or the other. And then I also try to make sure that I have at least one fiction thing going on as well book or audiobook or something. Right now I'm reading the Silo is the TV adaptation, but the Hugh Howey stories around that. And a little dystopian, a little bit discouraging, but yeah.
This is not a political question, but since you've been living in the region, has the region changed and felt different with Trump coming on and everything? Is it noticeable?
It is noticeable.
Yeah.
The number of layoffs in the DC area is super high right now.
Wow. Yeah.
The number of people first, second degree people that I know who are out of work right now is crazy high.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these are qualified people with lots of experience and all trying to do the right thing. And through no fault of their own, they're wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
And I think like the structural damage that can be done to some of these organizations is being overlooked in the short term. But yeah, the region has changed. When I first moved to that area, it was a blend of like, it had a tech corridor and then federal, obviously. And now it has data centers, which don't employ nearly the number of people. I think people don't know, by the way, but the Northern Virginia data center alley is like 25% of the internet.
Yeah.
And
AWS Virginia,
US East.
all of it. US East 1. Yeah.
US East.
Don't host in US East. That's note to self. Like, it has all the services, but it goes down the easiest. No.
Yeah. Anyway, we moved to that area originally in 1998. We went overseas. We lived here for a while, et cetera. In the time that we first moved there to the time that we moved back, most of the tech sector died. And so now it's really like largely federal and data center and infrastructure companies. What has been coming up, though, is cyber companies in the DC area. That there's a lot of expertise that comes out of places like FBI and NSA and whatnot. And so there's some good growth on that side. But it used to have a lot more just like random tech companies of all types. And it was arguably a top 5 tech ecosystem in the US when we moved there. Now I would say it's not.
Yeah, it's amazing evolution.
Yeah.
Opportunity to hire.
Yeah. There are companies that are seriously focusing on trying to get as many of these former federal employees as they can right now. There's some competition for talent.
Which is kind of what Trump says is like, hey, you got a lot of private sector that can fully. We'll see. This whole chaos theory is no comment.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. No one knows how it'll turn out, to be honest.
No.
But you can definitely see it.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. All right, we're going to let you go.
Thank you.
Good luck with the show.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for dropping by while you're in town.
My pleasure.
Good luck with the jet lag.
Thank you.